Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome. ¿Qué tal vosotros? Welcome to my speech on the next generation of safer cross-chain bridges and why all bridges still suck. First of all, a little bit about me. I'm a researcher and consultant specializing in ZK, L2s, privacy, and DAOs. Today we'll be talking about the current cross-chain bridge designs, what are the next generation of cross-bridge designs, how are L2s better than that, as well as some steps that we can take to improve all bridges. So why this talk? I'm actually based in the ETH ecosystem. I don't like bridging, right? But I acknowledge the fact that we will live in a multi-chain world, like with many different chains. And if we do that, we really need better bridges than we have right now. So just to give an idea of this, an estimated 69% of all funds that were hacked last year were from bridges. That's about $2 billion that was stolen from bridges last year. Examples of this are the Axie Infinity Bridge, the Nomad Bridge, as well as the Wormhole Bridge to Solana. And here's sort of the current categories of bridges we have. You don't have to look too closely at it yet. We'll keep coming back to this. The sort of point is there's a scale of trust, from trust to human to trustless, trust the code, right? And within those different categories of bridges, there's essentially two different bridge designs, wrapped asset bridges as well as liquidity provider bridges. And again, they have their own scale of trust assumptions. Liquidity providers are a lot safer than wrapped assets. So here's our current generation of cross-chain bridge designs. Essentially, we have three categories. Every single one of them fits into these three categories, which is essentially custodial wallets or bridges, where one actor testifies to the truth of bridging transactions as well as the state of each chain. Then we have a multi-sig design, where several different parties come to an agreement on what the current state is this a valid transaction? And then we have fraud-proof-based optimistic bridges. It's kind of like the, if you know optimistic L2s, same design. Essentially, any transactions automatically trusted until someone finds fraud, and then it's contested and it reverts the transaction. This sounds like it's a big trust assumption, but the reality is it's not a guy literally reading through the transactions. The computers do this automatically. You're essentially guaranteed to be able to see a false transaction. And so here's kind of where we're at with our current bridge designs. Both multi-sig custodial and optimistic, they bridge funds. Cool. Also for optimistic ones, there is some level of being able to trust the state without just relying on other actors. There should actually be a big asterisk there, which we'll come back to. So here's our sort of next generation cross-chain bridge designs. And here we have essentially light clients and ZK bridges to the rescue. Examples of this are IBC and Polkadot for light clients, as well as for ZK Bridge, ZK IBC, which is worked on by multiple different companies right now, as well as Succinct Labs and a couple other ones. So just to get you excited on light clients, Satoshi actually had a whole section on light clients in the Bitcoin white paper. It didn't talk about bridging, but it shows how important light clients actually are to blockchains. So what is a light client? Essentially, a light client helps a user access and interact with a blockchain trustlessly without having to run a full node and sync the entire state of the blockchain. Essentially, you have the state root and the block headers, and using this, you can see, okay, right now, Daniel has 1 ETH, right? Instead of having to sync up to that point every single transaction. So how do light clients apply to bridges? Well, actually, I went over that part. So there's two types of light clients. Essentially, protocols that support native light clients. Examples of this are Cosmos, for example, or Polkadot. And we will have also these in Ethereum in the future using statelessness through vertical trees and some, actually doing ZK proving of L1 transactions. The other more chain agnostic method is using ZK proofs. We can essentially make a light client of any blockchain, right? You do need to program it separately for each type of virtual machine, but you can support a light client for any blockchain at all. So the benefits of a light client-based ZK bridge, or ZK bridge, really. is that if you're being censored, if the node operators of the bridge start censoring you, you can force your own transaction. You just make a proof of the blockchain and you submit it. So you can't be censored, you can't be stopped, right? Also, unlike optimistic or multisig or custodial, you don't have to worry about the state. Again, big asterisks. The problem is you can make a ZK proof of a blockchain, but how do you know it's the right proof of the right blockchain, that it's not a forked instance or someone didn't just copy it offline and make a proof? At that point, you need essentially validator signatures, which becomes, first of all, very expensive, and that's a majority trust assumption. That is not trustless, right? Another benefit of ZK for light clients is much faster latency. With optimistic bridges, you need to wait at least 30 minutes, right? You could do 7 minutes, but then someone can censor the chain and stop those actors from proving that this transaction is false, and maybe it submits a false transaction. The problems of light clients is, for example, I mentioned the validator signatures. In Ethereum, you have about 400,000 validator signatures. Good luck putting that on another blockchain. Like, that's really expensive, and you need to do that every 12 minutes, right? You still have a majority trust assumption on both the chain you're bridging to and from. If either one of them reorgs or is attacked, someone might be able to steal all the money from the bridges, right? Depending on the design, like IBC, maybe you saw this with Terra, everyone just shut down connections to Terra, and all of a sudden you have assets somewhere else that aren't really backed because you can't move them back to Terra, right? And ZK is hard, right? It's black magic mathematics. That's what I work in mostly. Like, there could very well be issues in either the prover software or the verifier software, right? So here's where we're kind of at. You don't have to trust the relayers. You can do it on your own. Again, for the state truthfulness, both should have an asterisk because you still need majority trust assumption on the validator signatures, right? But we have all these other issues in bridges, and this is like a simplified list of issues. There's many other issues besides this, right? So how do we improve this? First of all, ZK right now is hard, and a light client should actually verify state transitions. That's not what most light clients do right now. So at the moment, optimistic is actually better. It has a longer latency, though. Like, you will have to wait some time, right? So how are L2s better than cross-chain bridges? I call these the next generation of cross-chain, or bridges in general. And keep in mind, this is multi-chain, this is L2s, L3s built on one blockchain. And we have 3 types of bridges for the multi-chain ecosystem. One is locally verified third-party bridges. One is like native L2 bridges, and the other one is like L2 plus, essentially fractal L3s, or in optimistic superchain, like multiple L2s, that bridge design. Important to note on the third-party bridges, most third-party bridges, even in L2, are custodial or multi-sig, right, or optimistic. So it's the same thing, right? For it to be locally verified, the user needs to be able to dispute a transaction, to force their own transaction through. And honestly, like, the only real example of this right now is Hop Exchange. That's it, right? So you might say, wait, L2s are bridges? By definition, that is literally what a L2 is, a bridge on top. And then you have a blockchain, but it's defined by its bridge. So here's some examples of how multi-chain rollup bridges are a lot safer than cross-chain bridges. Chain reorgs and attacks, whether that's innocent or malicious, right? So what happens in a normal cross-chain bridge if either chain is reorged or attacked to reorg, right? Wrapped asset bridges become completely blocked, unbacked, right? For LP-based bridges, the LPs lose the money, right? Important note for this is, like, if it's an innocent reorg like blockchains do all the time, right, well, Polygon especially, any assets in transfer are the ones that become either unbacked or LPs, right? But if someone's doing this maliciously, they can keep reorging over and over again, and they can use it to drain all of the funds of a bridge, right? Completely backed, or LPs lose all their money. Also, the problem is we have a problem in bridge designs called the weakest link problem, right? If one of those chains of the 30 chains they're connected to get attacked like this, you lose backing of all of those chains, right? So your weakest link in a cross-chain bridge is any one of them. Like it's a one, like any one of them, and you could become completely unbacked. Right? So what happens for L2s if the L1 gets reorged? Nothing. Like this is how probabilistic blockchains work in the first place. Maybe you swap ETH to USDC. If there's no reorg, you get your USDC, right? If there is a reorg, you get your ETH back. That's what we're dealing with in blockchains in the first place, right? That's just probabilistic blockchains. What happens if a L2 reorgs, right? And this is a bit complicated because after an L2 submits its transactions onto L1, it can't reorg. But we want to give fast finality. We want to give that 1 second finality, so there is some sort of consensus mechanism that could be reorged before the transactions get submitted. So L2 users in this case are probably fine, right? They pretty much keep all their funds. Again, probabilistic blockchains, you get one or the other. Regardless, you have your money. For third-party bridges that don't submit directly through L1, it's the same thing as cross-chain bridges. Assets can become unbacked, LPs can lose money. So a cool thing about a multi-chain world is you can trigger L1 or L2 trustlessly. If you're on L1, you can trigger L2's contract automatically. You can pass messages without any external relayers or any additional trust assumptions. You can also do it the other way. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. You can do trustless token bridging, you can do trustless messaging, right? Depending on how you do it, because if you do L2 to L2, you should go through L1. Like you can trigger your contract from L2 to L1, which triggers the L2 contract on the other place. This is probably not how bridges are gonna do it though. This is the safe way. Please, if you're building a bridge, do it this way. The reality is people want really fast confirmations. My money's there right away. They're probably gonna do L2 to L2. At that point, it's a cross-chain bridge. You can read L1 state from L2, and you can read L2 state from L1, because the L2 state literally lives on L1, right? So you can read it right away. From L2, you can read the L1 state because all the operators are running both a full node for Ethereum as well as the L2. And you can verify that it's a canonical instance by checking the block hash opcode. And examples of this are you could do like cross-chain lending. You could lock up the assets on L1, not even bridge them. And L2 could read its state, okay, it's locked up in an L1 contract and you get a loan on L2 without even doing the bridging transactions. Snapshot X also will let you vote trustlessly on a cheaper L2, but it has the full security of L1. Coming soon to TM for that one. Then we have this concept of L2 plus bridges. This is really what I work in, right? And the idea of bridging assets between L2 to L3, L5, or to L2 in the first place is much safer than cross-chain, right? I call this the next gen bridges. This made more sense when it was just L3, and then Optimism came out with Superchain, and it's like, oh, shit, I need to change it to L2 plus. So, example of Optimism. The idea is that each Optimism chain, whether it's Coinbase or Optimism original chain, the assets are in the same bridge, right? And essentially this allows you to natively bridge assets from Coinbase to Optimism without even bridging. In fact, it's not really bridging, it's just fancy accounting. You just mark it's not on this chain anymore, it's on this one. Using something like, okay, the shared sequencers is a really exciting new case. I'm a programmer. I've always been skeptical of blockchains. Like, this shit doesn't scale. Using shared sequencers, which is a longer speech, we can actually maintain atomic composability between these fractals, as well as like true atomic composability, and we can shard state dynamically to make it infinitely scalable. I don't like that word, but dynamically scalable. There is actually a link there if you want to see their design doc. It's quite cool. long, but very cool. It doesn't go super into details, but it's a good one to check out. Then we have recursive ZK fractal protocols. So you can create L3s, L4s, L5s on top of that one L2, right? And again, much safer. All of the different Ls, even though it sounds like it'd be a different chain, they use exactly the same bridge circuit design, right? So as long as the L2 bridge is safe, all those other ones are safe too, automatically. And again, you can do this sort of fancy accounting within it. So here's where we're at right now. We now prevented chain reorgs and attacks, kind of, assuming they do it right. They probably won't. People want fast confirmations. For L2 rollups, you also fix the weakest link problem. You fix depeg issues, LP issues. You don't fragment liquidity from a bridge design. You might fragment liquidity within the protocols themselves, but we're working to fix some of that with shared sequencers. And with ZK L3 and L2 superchain kind of designs, you also get completely trustless L2 plus bridges, completely trustless. It's the same security assumption as Ethereum, and then hopefully they don't make any code mistakes. But we do still have these two issues. Bridge upgrades, the multi-sig, even if it's the nicest bridge design, a multi-sig can upgrade it and steal people's money, right? There's always the issue of code always has bugs. I don't think I've ever written a program once in my life that didn't have bugs. And it's hard to find them. Some of them are very theoretical attack vectors that you would not even think about as a programmer, right? And for ZK ones, provers and verifiers are very hard. So again, black magic math, you might get it wrong, and that might allow people to submit a fake state. So here's some steps we can do to improve all bridges, including cross-chain and layer 2 multi-chain. First of all, we should have circuit breakers. If over 10% of the funds in a bridge are bridged in one day, for example, you shut off the bridge. And this allows the programmers and the multisig time to actually review, is this false? Is someone attacking us? Or can we just stop this, right? You should have delay periods, right? So if a multisig decides we need to upgrade this bridge, you should upgrade it after 7 days. In the meanwhile, you can freeze the bridge and work on a method to let people withdraw before your upgrade, right? L2s actually allow this kind of natively, but you could actually freeze that function too, so implementation matters. If there's a critical bug, you freeze it, people have the time to exit or submit exiting transactions, and then it gets upgraded if they don't like the direction you're going in. Let's say they change the multisig to 1 of 1 from 12. You don't like it, you want to bridge out, right? This is a harder concept. You could do essentially a hybrid multisig. So maybe ZK is hard right now, and it will be. Any cryptography is a function, the security of cryptography is a function of time times money. Like, we had hashing functions that got hacked 10 years later, right? The more time it goes that you use it, the more secure it becomes, right? So we could do a combination of a multisig for every transaction on a ZK rollup, for example. You would do the ZK rollup, and you could do, for example, Intel SGX. And if one of them is lying or says a different result, it automatically freezes the bridge. So you can't drain all the funds just because there was a ZK proving mistake. Multi-verifier, again, harder. The verifier lives on L1. You can implement it in 2 different languages. And maybe this way, if you fuck up the implementation on one of them, the other verifier catches it. You can check the link there. This is actually a proposal by Toguro. Every user should be able to force their own transactions. This is to prevent censorship, mainly. Like, so you can't just lock up users' funds. And this does work with optimistic ZK, storage proof, and L2, L3 bridges. It does not work with custodial, multisig, or native light clients. You can't. They're the ones in charge. For any centralized assets, like currently USDC, Circle is the only one that's allowed to mint or burn or issue USDC. So at that point, if they have all the power, you can make a native Circle bridge. where you essentially, when you bridge from Ethereum to Solana, it burns the USDC on Ethereum, and they circle, mint the new asset of a native asset on Solana. And this way you could trustlessly bridge, trustedly while being trusted, bridge USDs to a different chain. So now we fixed bridge upgrades and smart contract issues. Kinda, not really. They're never gonna be fixed. Like, again, time matters for any of these implementations. And every time they upgrade the bridge, you need more time again. So, sorry, we can't really fix those two, but we can try to take steps to make it better as much as we can. The point of this speech is all bridges suck. Just kidding. Okay, well, they do kind of suck a bit, but honestly, like, again, there will always be extra security assumptions for going, especially cross-chain. Even on a L2, there's extra security assumptions, but these will get better over time, right? The more we actually freeze the design, the more time it gets tested, we can be a little bit more secure in using these. Please practice safe bridging. Be aware of the risks you're taking, and do not hold, for example, wrapped ETH on Solana. Please don't, bad idea. I do have, okay. I promised at ETH Denver when I was giving this that I would make, I have an hour version of this that really breaks down every security issue, shared sequencers, it goes into those more, a bunch more details. I still need to put it online. So you can follow me at ZKLumi on Twitter, I'll get it up there. There is also a speech for shared sequencers that I'll be giving later this year for scaling, there should be quotes around infinitely, essentially scaling any blockchain dynamically. We talked about ZK today. I do have a ZK 101 speech meant for non-mathematicians. It was a very select group of us nerds that cared about ZK. Now with the ZK EVM meme, all of a sudden everyone's talking about ZK, but try asking cryptographers to explain to you how ZK works. It's not gonna work, right? There is a panel that I hosted at ETH Gathering called L2s Security. So you're aware of more of L2 has the issues too. You're a little bit more aware of the security assumptions you have using multi-chain. I also recommend to, like, if you want to bridge somewhere, check L2Beats bridge risk analysis tool. It really breaks down every attack vector. They do a really good job with it, as well as what type of bridge it is, what are the upgrade paths, all that. And that's it. You can follow me at ZKLumi on Twitter. Thanks for your time today. We do have 5 minutes for questions, so shoot. Actually, I should explain. Avalanche Bridge is essentially between multi-sig and like an optimistic. It's a multi-sig. It's a, what is it, 6 of 8 now? It was 2 of 3. The Intel SGX helps you with proving state, but you have to still trust the actors in it. Okay, and then any questions, because I probably should have said that earlier. Okay, I guess that's it. Cheers. Thanks, guys.